Hey, you're listening to Abyss Gazing, where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health.
I'm your co-host, Mark. Cha-cha.
And I am
Cha-cha.
your non-toxic co-host, Josh.
How am
Uh,
I toxic?
I mean, you didn't think of a tie-in joke. That's just I didn't
The
say you were
fuck, man?
toxic.
The fuck, man?
I never once said you were toxic. You took it as that. That's not on me, my
Dang.
guy.
And it's
Oh.
me, Billy. I'm back again.
Yeah, he just
Billy,
kind of shows up. It's
he's like,
it's
when
Even
is
when you
this?
don't want me to.
When is this shtick gonna be over? Introduce me, damn it! Hello, Billy.
Hey, man.
Welcome back. I didn't realize this, but it's been over a year since we've had you on the show. So welcome back for real.
Thank you. Didn't realize it had been that long, but yeah.
I feel like Nope was like the last time we had you on.
I was on
or
for
was it
Cocaine Bear.
Oh yeah, he was on for all
and
right.
crimes of the future, whatever the
But
hell
that
that
was
shitty movie
before
was.
That
Nope.
was yeah. So
Huh.
it has not been a year. Cocaine Bear. This year has been a lot of podcasting, a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
I've
Had a lot of
probably
trying to track down guests.
I've probably had a microphone in front of at least 100 different people this year, and they've all been awesome. So, welcome. Good to have you on that list, Billy.
Appreciate it.
But we are getting weird and toxic and slightly offensive, I guess, if you're looking at this movie from the 2023 lens. We're talking about 1984 or
Something.
1986's The Toxic Avenger, depending on which listing you're looking at. Because the copyright apparently is 1984. I watched through the credits today, so
Hmm.
but
I don't know. I remember the cartoon when I was a kid. The
which you,
Toxic Avenger cartoon.
yeah, which you can now stream on
Amazon.
Screenbox.
Is it
Also,
on Amazon too?
it might be. I know it's on Screenbox.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
So
just remember they took this like kind of super violent, not kid friendly at all movie, super cheesy movie, and turned it into a kid's cartoon.
right,
That's about all I remember of it.
right. Let's back up. When did you see this movie for the first time?
The actual movie,
Yes.
um, I watched it after watching Frankenhooker for the Frankenhooker episode
Okay.
because they're both trauma, whatever films. And
Troma
this one,
films.
yeah. And I think they're kind of loosely same universe kind of movies, aren't they?
Not to my knowledge, but
I mean,
uh,
they could be.
like Frankenhooker's way better. Go check out that episode, please. Billy, what about you, my guy? What is your relationship with this movie?
I think I watched it back, early 90s when I was a teenager. So I had to go back and rewatch it. And yeah, this is that campy movie that everybody wants and doesn't realize.
Yeah, I watched this movie like a couple days after Mark texted me and he was like, "Yeah, so we finally watched this movie." And I was like, "Okay, cool. How is it?" And he's like, "It's a lot of fun. It's really dumb, but it's really fun. You should watch it." And I ended up watching all four movies.
Four. I've seen the first two. We haven't watched three and four yet.
Let me just tell this on there in case it just doesn't get brought up anywhere else in the conversation. This series has such a strong start and is such a lousy ending. Like the through line for like the like the climax, the third entire act of the third film is him battling a lizard version of Satan. And then like the opening to the opening like 15-20 minutes to part 4, which was made is the only one in the series made in the new millennium, is perhaps some of the most offensive material I've ever seen captured on film. It is incredibly uncomfortable. God bless this movie that it started here. If you only watch one movie this entire series, watch this one. That's it. That's the only one you need. They get progressively worse. Although Toxie versus Lizard Lucifer was pretty entertaining.
I mean, they come from it. I mean, how many other movies do you know of that we would never be able to get today? This is one of them. We're getting a remake that I don't know
Yes.
how they're making a remake of this that's going to fly by all the censors and not get itself canceled.
I was
See,
going to say cancel culture right there.
See, here's the thing though about the about Toxic Avenger and like really all of Troma. Troma is we actually just had I got a chance to interview a Troma director last year, Liam uh why am I blanking? Liam Reagan is he's the writer director behind Eating Miss Campbell, which was one of the best films of last year. It's a great horror comedy. If you guys get a chance to see it, it's a great little thing. But one of the things that I have to say is that Troma by now like has been in business for over 30 years, and they essentially just make movies that either A, they want to see, and B, they know their audience. It's like it's weird because like this one just kind of seemed like they didn't really know what they wanted to do or how they wanted to, but they've built an entire empire around films very similarly to Toxic Avenger.
I didn't even know they were still around.
Oh yeah, very much
And
so.
the movies are still just as bad.
No, I would say I can't say anything past Eating Miss Campbell. Eating Miss Campbell's a great film. Um, it was one of my favorite horror films from last year, but I honestly can't speak to the quality past them. I've seen these movies and Eating Miss Campbell. So that's 5 of Troma's films that I've seen. That's it. That's all I can say. So I don't know.
And Frankenhooker. So that would be
Oh,
6.
and Frankenhooker. So 6. Yeah. How could I forget Frankenhooker? Please forgive me. Love that.
Conversations you never thought you'd have.
Love that movie. Um, but yeah, I don't know really where you guys want to start with this one. This one's like such a weird anomaly in our catalog of podcasts because it's very much in the vein of Frankenhooker, like its spirit, but it doesn't quite have that a little bit of that like social commentary punch, whereas this one is just like it's weird. Bottom line.
I mean, that's what makes it good, though.
Yeah,
Billy is confused.
I'm not confused.
He's just down there like, yeah. He's gonna
Yeah,
sound like,
it's really weird. And yeah, if you're gonna watch it, just be careful not to watch it like really young kids.
It's
When the scene comes out and it's just nothing but like softcore porn almost. Seriously.
but also that's a product of its time. When I had the chance to interview last month, the directors of Murder Size, which is like a homage to a lot of like the weird crossover between aerobics and horror that happened in the 80s. Like somehow like the Toxic Avenger doesn't quite sit at like the intersection of like Luann Quigley's Horror Workout or Death Spa, but yet somehow it feels like adjacent. It feels kind of like that like creepy
it
guy that's just sitting outside the gym just watching.
it fully embraced like C movie status, not even B movies, but C movie status. It just fully embraced everything about it and was almost like a satire of a satire in the way it's done. And it's part of what makes it just so awesome.
Yeah.
And Josh just summed up the whole beginning of the movie without trying. Basically, there was a weird looking guy staring inside the gym.
I all right, so I really, really want to know. So there's a scene, you guys. Neither one of you have seen like the sequels, right?
I
I've
haven't.
seen the second one.
Okay, so there's a scene in the third one where they recast Melvin's like retoxy look. I for whatever reason, but yet they bring the actor who plays Melvin actually comes back in the fourth film, which makes no sense to me. Uh,
Wait, what?
okay, so in the
So
third film,
nerdy Melvin comes back, or they get a new actor for?
so they recast him in the third film, and then they bring back the original actor in the fourth film.
Okay.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Hmm.
I don't know if there was just like a shooting conflict because I believe the second and third one shot back to back because they came
I
out
just,
like lickety split.
I just like the fact that they had Michael Jai White in it before anybody knew who he was.
That fact still blows my mind. It's like telling people that like Matthew Lillard got his start in Ghoulies 3. Like such a random fact to know.
Yeah, he's known for like all these martial arts movies and stuff, or being a gangster and everything he's in, and then he's like some suited up businessman in Toxic Avenger 2.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like this is probably the first time we've podcasted where I literally have no idea what you guys want to talk about because Toxic Avenger is like so random, but like it feels almost like they just had a dartboard and they're like, all right, where do we need the story to go? And they just had like possible like narrative ideas and they just kind of threw them out of order, but yet somehow it makes sense. Like there's so many different storylines that this thing has going on for it. And I will also say that while by the majority of today's standards, this movie can like slightly be offensive. As Billy said,
Slightly.
this is not one for the kids. This movie was like for its time also had some progressiveness because the scene where uh he's like beating up the all of the people in the alley
Yeah.
Yeah.
like that men in dresses like
Yeah.
that didn't happen, you know? Like in that time, you know, and I
I
think Lloyd
think
Kaufman's
this was pre RuPaul, so
yes. Yeah, so like that just didn't happen though. Like when you there are not a whole lot of horror movies that are in really embracing that. And the sheer fact that you have your antagonist, protagonist, your titular character with a literal like tutu burned to him. Say what you will, this movie is like kind of progressive in that way. And you know, I think it really kind of foreshadowed what how Troma would approach storytelling and the ideas that they would do in later films.
yeah, because everything that I can think of from around that time period was fairly just kind of rehashes and same story, same problem we got now. A
Yeah,
lot of the same thing, or it was Jason or Freddy or wannabe of either one of them.
sure.
So it was kind of a new idea that I can think of because I don't know of anything else like it, especially not from the time frame.
Yeah, and like also like on that like because this is the time like Billy brought this up earlier with like the opening in the gym. Like that's the way that like, you know, women were essentially vehicles for sex appeal and then you had guys that were the epitome of um you know, toxic masculinity. And this film captures that opening so perfectly where like you have like all the roids and like that scene where they're lifting and you have the guy and the girl. I can't remember names, so I'm just.
Yeah.
But the guy gets done. He's like, keep going, keep going. You know, you got some flab, and he's like, I ain't got no flab, I ain't got no flab. But he like lifts up his shirt, and, like picks up this like little like skin of fab, and then he's like, got hit. He falls back down, and he just like starts pumping iron again, and it's like that's the kind of like that was the culture back then, and so to like have guys that were like embracing a different kind of sexuality really made it progressive. Not to mention that, like, it's played for comedy, but you traditionally didn't also, at least from what I've found in horror, didn't have blind characters in this one as well. And so the fact that she is now a staple of this franchise with Toxie,
Yeah.
also worth mentioning.
What, Mark?
I was listening to him, seeing if what you thought.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there, like I said, that probably wouldn't fly today. And then, oh my God, the dog, man. Why'd they have to do that to the dog?
I've seen this movie twice now, and every time I watch this movie, I always forget about that scene. And I'm like, oh, surely they won't do it. And then boom. And I'm just like, oh God. And they show it. And it's like stupid graphic too.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
having a
just
brain. I'm having a brain fart. The dog.
the dog was shot. The blind girl's dog was shot in the restaurant whenever the
Oh
guys were
yeah.
trying to rob the
Okay,
restaurant. That
that's
was
right.
because the other guy was trying to bend her over a table.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. I think even for the genre and the time period, it was a fairly graphic movie too. And a
Which,
lot of what they showed.
Yeah, which I mean, by today's standards, like doesn't really feel that way. But when you put it in the context of
Ah,
that, it
even by today's standards, stuff like I Spit on Your Grave or Last House on the Left is still graphic by today's standards.
I will absolutely give you that. But from like a violent standpoint, I don't really feel like Toxie's like even in that conversation. But when you go to something like the transition between Carpenter's first Halloween and his second Halloween, it's infinitely more graphic, and you have that because like of Friday the 13th was kind of like this like cultural shift where they're like, hey, we're gonna make movies more violent and the deaths more creative, and Toxie kind of fits like right in that. Like I don't really know like what type of like subgenre this is because it sure as hell is not a slasher. Uh,
And
it's not quite
it's
sci-fi either.
would it be creature feature?
I mean, I was thinking more towards not necessarily, but like The Fly back in the day, where,
Okay.
not, you know what I mean, just the way he transformed and everything. That's what that reminded me of, was kind of like The Fly.
Yeah, like The Fly, like the original one with Vincent Price is very much like feels like a sci-fi film, kind of like almost pulpy. But
You could almost classify this as a superhero movie, even though it falls in the horror genre.
I I got done this movie today, and I watched the trailer for the new one, which first off, it just looks brilliant. Like that's how you do a trailer. It's less than a minute and a half long, and it's literally just news clips. And at the end of the trailer, they basically like are calling him a superhero. So like this movie feels almost kind of like a superhero parody,
Y-
almost
Yeah,
with a horror twist.
yeah. It's that freak show kind of anti-hero superhero kind of thing with some assholes to get murdered violently with mops.
Well, a lot of them deserve it, especially the ones that were getting points for hitting people with the cars. Really?
Yeah,
And
there's
then, hold on. And then the guy says, guys, one of them's asking, hey, can we stay out a little bit later? The other guy's like, no, I got to go to church in the morning.
yo, that scene in particular, and then it backs up. It's like everyone in this movie is kind of like a piece of crap. Like all of the people that die, so they're like you root essentially for this guy, because like there's the scene in the after the dry cleaner where he kills like the older lady, and the mayor finds out. And she's like, "Oh, we got him now," and he's like, "Actually, she was like the leader of like these like white this white slavery group." And you're just kind of like, it's like, and she just gives this like laundry list of like how this woman that you meet very briefly
Yeah.
was also a piece of crap.
I think, and even Melvin, when you get into Melvin, he wasn't exactly the nicest guy either.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Even
whoa,
though he was the nerdy janitor, he was always
Whoa.
kind of like a peeping Tom too.
whoa,
Whoa,
whoa.
whoa.
Yeah, but he was also getting bullied like left and right too.
Yeah,
Thank you, Billy.
he was getting bullied, but he was also a peeping Tom.
Look, we all
I've
have
seen
hormones.
you out, Mark. I've seen you out, Mark. Don't talk about the peeping Tom stuff.
First off, thank you, Billy. Second off, dude, like, it's you live around, like when you work around an environment very similarly to this, it's not like you're a peeping Tom. I think you're reading too much into this. I think he was just a guy that just happened to be here, you know.
He just
Dude,
happened to walk in and stand there and stare.
That's okay. The toxins opened him up after he became the Toxic Avenger. He could actually talk to the girls and all that.
yes. Boom. You lose, Mark.
Good day, sir.
Well, you said we needed some brainless movies, so we got one.
We did. And I don't think that, like, in all seriousness, I don't think Melvin's like, I don't know. Melvin's just kind of come he's just that archetype that is very shy, doesn't know how to talk to girls, and just kind of freezes up. Like, you know, he's very the movie establishes very early on that he's a klutz. You know, when he's like he's mopping throughout like the pool area, and he's like putting the mop onto like people in the pool. His boss calls him, and so he sticks it in the hot tub thinking it's the mop bucket. Like, he's
Yeah.
he's just a klutz. Like, to me, like, Melvin is just a guy that is like innocent and like doesn't really know any better. And when you get to explore the home life of Melvin, you kind of just find out there's just him and his mom. Like, his dad's not really anywhere to be found. And I mean, I don't know if you want to go in this direction, but you brought it up, so we're gonna go in this direction. Sometimes when you don't have that, you know, masculine figure growing up, you know, sometimes it can have a sometimes it could come out in Melvin like results into growing up. You know, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does, but it just kind of seemed like they really leaned into that for this movie. If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please If you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
Yeah, you could see that they leaned into that for this movie. It's
Uh,
not necessarily 100% like in life that, it's going to be that way, but in this movie they leaned into it hard. They
I mean, they kind of just leaned into the grime of this movie in general.
Or what if this is so? What if Melvin is just supposed to be a Jason parody? You know, you ever think that?
I mean, it could be if Jason was created by toxic waste.
I mean, he basically became like a zombie by what, like part 6? So,
I don't think he would. I still don't think he was a zombie.
bro, there are literal shots in the franchise of him coming out of water where you can see his spine, where his flesh has decayed. Dude was a
I
zombie.
I believe Jason is a revenant, not a zombie, because he has too much intelligence for what he does, and he's not after brains.
Also, fair,
Is that why
because
he didn't come after you, Mark?
Yes.
I was wrong. Also, Jason is a slug,
A parasite.
parasite sent from hell. So there's that. But in the Paramount, he's a zombie.
He's not a zombie.
Agree to disagree, my guy.
He is a revenant. He's
Anyways.
a spirit that has come back for vengeance to kill people,
Anyways,
especially teenagers that have sex.
Oxy, Melvin in this one, to go back to what Billy and I were saying before he's a rabbit trail. They've done studies on like kids that have like grown up in like single parent homes compared to like having kids that grow up in dual parent homes, and sometimes they can definitely have an effect if you're having a single parent home versus a dual parent home. And sometimes it affects like certain things in their development, and so I think that that's maybe something that they explored, and maybe I'm just trying to give this film a little bit too much credit, but
You are. There's no depth to the movie.
there is not.
You're over here trying to read into things.
Man, you better quit, Mark. He's going to make you an ice cream sundae like Toxie did to that one guy.
Yeah.
So, how did he pee on the wall and it not burn through the wall? I never understood that part.
That's the question that you have. I'm like, how did he have sex with a blind
Well, that
girl
too. Well,
and
I mean,
not
there was a
like
lot of steam
rupture
literally
her?
on that one.
That's
There was a lot of steam.
That's probably one of my
Yeah.
favorite scenes in this movie, is like when they finish, like they're like just sitting on the ground by the bed, and they're just like sharing a cigarette. Like, I was like, oh, perfect. Or
How
like,
about her fixing like 500 eggs?
and he's just like sitting there going to town on him.
Yeah, it's ultimately one of those movies you don't watch for any value other than entertainment and laughs. That's it. That's all it's there for.
Yeah. And like Mark and I are like trying to get better about doing like movies like Toxic Avenger and Frankenhooker, because we have a lot of heavy conversations, and like once a month, we just need to have a conversation that's like beneficial for our mental health, and just be like, let's do something stupid. It's something that doesn't really have a whole lot of depth. And Toxic Avenger is like the poster child for that kind of conversation.
And I know there's more out there that are just as poster child-esque. There has to be. Has to be.
Then why don't you ask people to send you suggestions of movie to watch similar to this one?
I did that one time, and he was like, dude, nobody's going to suggest anything.
Uh, we could also do for a future episode Romeo and Juliet. That's not sorry. Troma and I don't remember. I can't remember they have there's a Troma version of um Romeo and Juliet that they did that was written by James Gunn. It's like one of his first movies. And
Really?
it's kind of wild.
Dude, I know what we could do. Hatchet.
Okay. This is a conversation we can talk about when we are not on the air.
Yes.
This might be a shorter episode. Is there anything else you guys? All right, let's talk about this. Like with the remake. I mean, this cast is like quite large. It's Peter Dinklage taking up the role of Toxie in this one.
Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon is the villain in this one. Elijah Wood's in this. Jacob Tremblay. Like, I mean, this cast is like
it's got Elijah Wood tied to it. Is it his studio that's putting it out?
no. So it's actually Legendary Pictures, the same studios that are responsible for Godzilla 2014, Godzilla versus Kong, Skull Island.
Okay, because I know
You know.
he's got a studio and all he does is horror.
Yes. But he's
So-
in this movie. He's
Yeah.
in the remake. And he looks like Penguin.
So I've only seen a handful of pictures. I just refuse for some reason to watch any of the trailers for this, even though I want to. But I want to go in with as low as expectations as possible.
Let me just say that having just watched the trailer today, I normally try not to watch the trailers, but I was super curious how they were going to do this one. I've read a lot of the reviews. This is going to be a really gray movie for a lot of people. You're either really going to love this movie or you're really going to hate it. And I'm curious where you guys both stand on it. Did this movie need a remake? Are you happy with the cast? Like how do you guys feel about the remake?
So
I'm actually intrigued. I'm interested in maybe watching it and everything. I want to go in as a blank slate though, because I don't want to go in with expectations and that make it worse. You know how you go into a movie and it's like, yeah, this is going to be so good, and you get in there and you're disappointed. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what to think because for horror fans, Toxic Avenger is like a cult classic.
Mhm.
It's kind of like The Crow, the original Chainsaw Massacre, things like that. You don't want to touch them. And even the remake that Michael Bay did of Chainsaw Massacre, it was decent in its own right, but it was
The
just
original.
it wasn't the original. Yeah, and Rob Zombie's Halloween is good in its own rights, but it's not the original. And
That's not what you said on Patreon.
oh,
Continue.
I love the remake. I didn't say I didn't like the remake. I love the remake. But it's a case of it's kind of big shoes to fill for the cult fans. Outside of people and weirdos like us that know this movie and have seen it, it's going to be pretty much just a new movie for anybody else. So I'm not really sure what to expect, and I hope it's not a case of we're taking this small IP that people probably have forgotten about, and we're going to see if we can make something off of it. Unlike the upcoming Crow remake, where everybody knows The Crow and loves it, and everybody has been fairly vocal about not wanting a remake, and they're going to fucking make a remake anyways. We'll see what happens there.
I I feel like I'm in this camp where like I'm a lot like Billy. Like I'm very curious about this. This doesn't seem like a movie that you like going back and having watched the Toxic Avenger for the first time in 2023. This is not the type of movie that you can make nowadays. Now, if they decided that they were going to remake something like Black Christmas or Texas Chainsaw or you know
Well, they did remake Black Christmas, and
I
they
I know.
they
Let me finish.
PC'd it.
Let me finish.
Fuck
I,
it.
you could definitely remake movies like that by today's standards because thematically there's nothing that's inherently given there for shock value the way that Toxic Avenger is. Toxic Avenger is one of those movies that thrives not only on its weirdness, its bizarre nature, but also at the same time that there are so many things that happen that are given here for shock value from, you know, the police guy that is like, treats the mayor like he's Hitler in this, or the fact that you have a blind girl that gets raped in this or almost raped before Toxie steps in. Then you have a dog getting violently shot. Like those are and a lot of like offensive jokes that are also like you couldn't do some of those things by today's standards. And so I think the violence and like I think the violence and some of the things that this movie has at its core you could do, but you couldn't replicate the shock value that this movie has in its heyday.
Yeah, I no, you can't. You're going to piss off too many people that are going to call for it to be canceled that it'll never come out. Or if it does, it'll be short lived and you'll never see it again.
And I I'm gonna frame this just as an example for context. I think as a film going audience, it's kind of incredible to me how far we've come and how far we've advanced. So back in 2008, they MGM was slated to release a movie called The McKinsey Tapes. The McKinsey Tapes was a found footage film that essentially was like a discovery of like a real life of a serial killer that basically made snuff films and it told everything through those snuff films and like kind of like a police procedural way too. The movie had like a great uh PR campaign for it, and MGM basically after it premiered at Tribeca, MGM pulled it from its release in 2008, and it because of its quote unquote shocking nature and like really gross out kind of the movie to put it bluntly, I think I've seen it several times. The movie is very uncomfortable, it's very uneasy, but they kept it out of the limelight until it kind of built up this cult, this legend around it. And by today's standards now it's kind of become this like cult classic. It's become internet famous, and you're allowed to get away with that. But like, it's weird to me that like 15 years ago something like this wouldn't happen. So like now the fact that there's a major studio that is funding something like the Toxic Avenger, it just kind of shows how far we've come as a movie going audience.
How far we've come or how far backwards we've gone.
How far we've come. I don't know. I mean, I guess theoretically, you could
Because
look at it from either way.
because to me there was much more freedom years ago to make movies than there is now. There's so many rules and restrictions, and if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or have the wrong subject matter or something, in some cases, how many castings have we heard that's been canceled because they weren't enough of a certain nationality? So I think we've kind of gone backwards in storytelling and movie making and music making with the way things are done.
I mean, I could definitely see it from that perspective as well. I mean, like Billy said earlier, like cancel culture has really kind of cancel culture and like also bullying have definitely been, factors that we've seen. Like, you know, uh, Sonic is a great example. Like, they released the first one. The internet was like it was like fires across all social media platforms, and they're like,
they su-
psych, here you
they
go.
they successfully internet bullied an entire studio into spending another like 100 million
To
to
change
fix
Sonic.
Sonic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, but that also gave us ugly Sonic for Chippendale Rescue Rangers. So who really won here?
The bullies. We all did.
The people that made Sonic ugly and had him voiced by Tim
It
Richardson.
it
Let's
it
go.
had to be one of the most unintentionally awesome like media campaigns ever. They're like, we're going to put this out and it's going to make a little bit of money. And they got bullied into pulling it, pushing it back like a year, like doubled the budget, redid all the Sonic animation and characters, put it out like a year later. It's like, now y'all wanted this and you're getting what you want now. And they made a fortune off of it, a second movie. And a third one is in the works right now.
You know what also is in the works right now? A Toxic Avenger remake. It's done. It's making its festival run. Are we in the camp that we are for it or against it?
I will watch it. I'm not as anti Toxic Avenger remake as I am the Crow remake.
Ooh, okay, that's fair.
I'm gonna watch it. I want to watch it, especially with the cast, like we said earlier. That just intrigues me on how they're gonna do this.
Yeah, it's got Elijah Wood involved in it, and he's kind of positioned himself as a modern horror icon almost
Yes,
between
he has.
his production company and the movies that he's in and things like that.
Yeah, I'm 100% here for it. If we don't get it this year, it is on my most anticipated list for next year. This movie looks entertaining as you can get, and I'm here for it. So I don't have anything else to say other than the Toxic Avenger. It's a fun, weird time. Go check it out. It's streaming for free as of this episode on like a number of streaming platforms. For free. You just have to sit through ads, but Mark, you got anything else you wanna bring up, or Billy?
No, I think we hit everything on this one.
Yeah.
If you need some mindless violence, go check out Toxic Avenger.
Hey kids, do you like violence? I think it's gonna do it for us on this episode. We'll be back this Tuesday with a special Halloween episode talking about the independent found footage film Project Eerie. Until then, Billy, where can people find you online?
Call Mark.
Mark, where can people find you?
Call Josh.
How you gonna piggyback on me?
Okay. On that note, uh, yeah, you guys can find me. I'm on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia. You can check out my other podcast, That's High Praise, and Nicolas Cage podcast. You guys can find Abyss Gazing wherever you guys get your podcast from. And you guys can also follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon, and a whole bunch of other platforms as well. Links for are going to be in the show notes below. But if you guys do end up calling me, I'll give you Mark's number. You guys can call him. And yeah, I'll end it there. Remember, the longer you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you.